the cloud. All right, so we are recording. If you don't want to be filmed, go ahead and take yourself off of video. Drop your questions in the chat for the time being. We're going to definitely have time to answer questions throughout the presentation. And on that note, I'm going to make my co-chair, Michelle Herrera, also co-host. Hang on, Michelle, I'm going to make you a co-host. So Michelle and Sandy and I are co-hosting this, but you're mostly going to hear from Sandy Arthur, who this year is our supply chair and has been our supply chair for the last few years. But before that, she was the chair of the whole program, along with Karen Ford Cole, who's the PTA president at Paris right now. Sandy, if I recollect, you were chair from 2017 to 2019, at which point Buffy came in. And I think Buffy's joining us today, so hopefully we'll get to see her later. But on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Sandy, and she's going to take us through our formal docent training this morning. Thanks, Sandy.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. This is weird for me.
Yes, all good.
today.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm going to put everybody.
Yeah, I'm starting the Zoom call too on my stuff.
Yeah, I think we need to.
All right.
Sandy, go ahead and unmute yourself. Hang on, guys.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
My controls moved from the bottom to the top. I was getting lost.
Okay, I'm gonna
Jessica, 1 sec. I'm sorry, Sandy. It looks like we've reached our limit of 100 people and others are still trying to get in. But I don't think there's anything we can do about that, right?
Let me investigate.
Unless we had maybe some of our old people that don't need to be here.
Yeah, I can bow out.
Somebody who's experienced, I don't know.
Okay.
So if you've definitely done this more than 2 years, go ahead and drop out.
Okay, I'll drop.
And then remember, this is being recorded. So if you do actually have something else that you desperately need to be doing, that's fine. We're going to record this and you will be able to drop off. I will investigate if we can increase our participants while we're sitting here.
Do you want head docents to head chairs to drop off too, or do you want us to stay?
Head docents, why don't you drop off for now? And
Okay.
I will text you if I can get you. And I will send a note to our chat, our WhatsApp chat, to get you back later.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Bye, sorry, peoples. That's a bummer. I did not know there was a
I didn't think that
limit.
part through.
Okay, all right. Well, on that note, this
I'm
is
gonna
what
let
we're learning.
away.
We get to, with hands-on art, like life, like COVID has taught us all, we get to be flexible and we get to problem solve. So this is, I'm starting out on our screen. This is our theme for the year. Art creates new perspectives and flexibility. And we are doing some nature kind of art this time. We're going to do a project that is on the Northern Lights. So you see the colors and the perspectives and etc. So every year we do a little theme, and this is this year's. Jessica and I both have on our shirts from a different year. And so that's just kind of fun. So we got that going. And I want to thank you guys for being here. I know people are busy and it takes a little hunk out of your day. I am going to try to make this really worth your while and set you up for success, because this is such an important program, and art really matters to kids. You are bringing them 6 projects a year if you're doing elementary, maybe a couple less, but you're going to bring them art, and art really matters. It's something that is a little bright spot in their world of right and wrong, and you're in math and you've got the wrong answer or the right answer, you're told what to do all day, and you are bringing them a chance to really do something different where they make 100 little decisions and they're all theirs to make. And as I think we're all learning, it's really important in our world. We need to value art, because we don't need to keep recreating the same wheel. We need kids who can think and plan and come up with new ideas. So you're bringing something very important. And why is my thing not letting, oh, there we go. So this is a big investment, big reward kind of a volunteer thing. It's not show up and somebody's going to tell me what to do. It's something where you need to take a lot of initiative. It's going to be the biggest volunteer thing that you probably ever take on, but it's also going to be the best. It brings you so much good things into your life. It teaches you new things, which is great. And you're going to love how much the kids love to see you there. So it's really worth it. And on that note, I want to also mention, when you are there and you're giving this gift, give it wholeheartedly. Don't have one foot out the door at the meeting that you're going to be at. Try to really invest. When you're there, be there. You do not need to be an artist. Don't feel at all intimidated if you are not an artist. Very few of the people that do this are. Sometimes I even think the non-artists are better at this because they don't intimidate the kids. They don't feel like, oh my gosh, I could never produce that beautiful thing. If you can draw a stick figure, you are qualified. You do need to be patient. You need to be organized. You need a lot of things, but to be an artist, that is not a thing you have to be. I am not going to go over all the picky basics about your specific school because every school is different. Some schools have a room that all the kids go to and they do art there. Sometimes there's a cart and the art comes to the room. So you're going to find out those particular things or how to sign up with your teacher or your class from your school chair. I'm just trying to set you up for the bigger picture. So just keep that in mind that I'm not going to answer those questions. Okay, so our philosophy, we call ourselves hands-on art, but our one of our big things that you should always remember and pass along is we don't touch the kids' art. We might be hands-on art, but we don't touch. And the reason for that is many, but you really want the kid to own their own art, to feel like at the end of the day, they did it. There's a story that an old docent told about her own child where they were really stuck. They were doing like a person's face, and all she did was help them with putting a part in the hair, some really minor thing. And when the class was over and mom proudly displays it on the refrigerator, somebody came over and complimented it. And they said, "Oh, Joey, did you create that?" And they said, "No, my mom did it." All she had done was add that part, but in that child's mind, it wasn't his anymore. Maybe they even think it's only good because mom fixed it or the docent, somebody fixed it. So we don't touch the kids' art. And you make sure that everybody in the classroom kind of knows that. If you have helpers, make sure they understand that too. We don't judge. And I doubt anybody's going to, whatever go, "Oh, that looks terrible." But don't even judge the good way. Like, let's say you have a little circle of kids and they're all, doing their art, and there often is. There's sometimes a kid who does a spectacularly good job. And you have to kind of like keep it down, because if you go on about how beautiful Susie's art is, all the other little ears perk up, and they want to look, and then they're going to be, "Is mine good? Is mine good?" So you need to try not to get too enthusiastic and declare kids' art good or bad. They are going to ask you, "Is mine good? Is mine good?" And if you do say yes, then compliment everybody. You're going to have to compliment everybody, but you can also ask them, "Well, do you like it? What's your favorite part about it?" Try to talk about it in more general terms, or you can walk around and say, "Wow, this table, you're really doing a nice job with color," or something that isn't declaring it good or bad. You just kind of get the kids to talk about it. That goes for you too. So I've seen docents, so they get up and they draw something, and I've been tempted to do it myself. And you go, "Oh, that's no good. I'm not a good artist." well, what did you just do? You just set a terrible example. We're not judging ourselves either. We're not perfect. They're not perfect. You can just be like, oops, you know, like, let's say you make a circle that's really wonky. You can, oh, oops, I'm going to try that again. I'm going to try to make that more round. But you don't declare yourself not a good artist. And keep in mind, I think one of my favorite things that I picked up when my daughter was in elementary school that they were teaching was growth mindset. And the idea of that is, I'm not good at that yet. Add that word yet, and you've changed the whole ball game. So we're just trying and we're getting better. There's no such thing as being a good artist or not. We are all learning. Bunnies and dogs. What this is about is asking questions. When you are working with kids and they're drawing their art, it's better to ask questions than declare, because you don't want to go up and be like, oh, that is, you know, I really like the bunny that you drew. And you find out they were going for a dog. And then you've got to, you know, eat your words and try to cover up a little bit. So it's better to say, oh, tell me about your drawing. Tell me what you made. This is a hard thing to remember because we all want pretty refrigerator art. You know, I'm guilty of that too. But what hands-on art gives kids primarily is the experience of trying it. And it's important when you're talking to kids to say, hey, we're going to try this new thing. We may or may not love what we produce at the end of the day, but it's really wonderful that we get to try it. Maybe you want to even try it again at home. Maybe you want to, you know, and remind them if they start to feel nervous or bad that they're not producing this beautiful thing, that this is their first try, that we remember they used to not be able to walk and now look at them, they can run. So with art, it's the same. People aren't born artists, but we just practice and try. Stick to the lesson. We have worked hard as a program to come up with lessons that are, you know, good, and we've gone to a lot of trouble. And if the lesson is, let's say, a tiger, to draw a tiger, don't have the kids drawing an elephant. Now, if the kids draw an elephant on their own, that can be okay, but it's not your decision to go off and do something different. So we're going to stick with the lesson. And if kids want to do something different, sometimes you just let them. And sometimes you tell them, hey, why don't you draw that at home? Today we're doing this. Here's another very important thing that we really stick to. You only lead the class after you have gone to a workshop and done the project yourself. You might think that it looks so simple and you'll be fine, but every single time you do it, you'll find out that there's something you didn't expect and something that you learned. Maybe it's about the order that you need to do it in to be successful or something. But you only teach after you have done the project yourself. Projects are proprietary. That just means, you know, we have selected local artists who come up with the project we're going to do, and they've put a lot of time and thought into it. And they don't want you to go teach it to your Sunday school class or put it on the internet as your own. So they are proprietary. All right, I think that's that slide. Okay. Secrets to success. We're going to give you information. When you come to a workshop, you're going to produce a sample project, which, by the way, you want to keep because you're going to use it in the classroom. And you're going to learn a lot. You're not expected to tell the kids every last thing you learned, but I'll tell you, it's easier to go in front of a classroom of kids when you know way more than you need to. You'll feel much more confident. So you're going to watch videos. Maybe you'll go home and learn more about the artist, or maybe you'll go home and try it again. Always know more than you think you need to know. If you have a school that shares an art room, this is a little thing I like to do. If there's a drying rack, let's say we did a paint project like the one that you see here on the right, the kids usually have to leave them behind to dry and then they pick them up another day. When I come in to prepare for a lesson, I spy on the drying rack of the class that came before me, and I'm looking for what worked and what didn't. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, I see some of the kids didn't finish, or they made their lifeguard stand too little, or they really smudged stuff. And it might help me in how I present to avoid, whatever problems I see on the drying rack, or to do something that I see is really good. All right, find a hook. Like, your kids' class, how old they are, what they're learning. We did a project a few years ago where it was on the giant sequoias, for instance. And we talk about how big those trees are, that, the diameter of their trunk is huge. So I brought in a tape measure and I asked a kid to take the other end and back up. And we realized that the trunk of the tree was wider than the classroom we were in. So it just helped the kids to really visualize and to get hooked in. 2 days ago, I taught a project at a center for abused kids, but the project we did was called Dappled Sunlight. And it was on pointillism and how the light shining through trees can make little dots and stuff. And I found this crystal that was hanging in my window, and it's kind of acts like a prism, and it shows all the different colors and light. Now, this one would be a good for this year. This year, we're going to do a project called The Colors of Snow, where we realize that snow isn't just white, and this might be a good prop for that. So if you can find something to hook kids in, bring it from home. And that's always welcome. Set the tone. When you are the docent, you're basically the teacher. We can't call ourselves that because we're not, we don't have all the right certificates. But when the kids walk in the classroom, don't be chatting with the other parents. Don't be looking at your phone. Stand up front, act like the teacher, greet the kids, be professional. So just set the tone and the kids will respond better. Okay, this is super important. Pay attention to that crucial first step when the kids are doing anything. You demonstrate up front, but also usually I don't finish the projects. I do a little part, and my projects that I do in front of them often aren't finished because I walk around the classroom. And let's say you're doing, this owl or, this person here. If kids start tiny, they don't have room to add the eyes and the nose. You have a tiny little floating head and miles of sky. So really important, especially when you're just getting started, to walk around the class. And if you see that a child has drawn a tiny little head and we're doing a bust, you just tell them, oh, that looks a little too small. Let's make it bigger, and show them. Maybe you trace with your finger. You can, touch their paper that way. Don't draw on it, but you can show them with your finger how big they need it to be. That will save you so many problems if you just don't let them start out. I call it tinyitis because that's what I used to tease. My oldest daughter was the worst, where she would make the most tiny, delicate little things. And I would say she had tinyitis. So try to avoid that. Move is just what I would just said. Walk around the classroom. Don't get stuck. Sometimes I have one friend that she's just awesome, but she gets so involved in doing her art up front and making it pretty, she doesn't see what the kids are doing. So walk around, make sure that you are aware of what's happening in your classroom. Do we have any questions up to now that I should stop and answer? Nope. Okay, moving on. Consider your audience. This is just to remind you that I think we heard, last year was such an odd year with COVID and people trying to teach off of videos, that some people actually would put the video on for the classroom and not teach themselves. We really want you to teach it yourself. So there's all different resources out there, and you get to pick what you use and what you do. So a lot, and present the good stuff that you think the kids will be interested in. Don't read every word on the lesson plan. Boring. Just give the highlights. All right. Be a clock watcher. Super important. Don't let the kids get, well, you're going to find out in advance, how much time do I have to teach this class? Is it an hour? Is it an hour and 20 minutes? And in your mind, have a little bit of a game plan for where you want to be at certain times. You don't want to, not let the kids have a little bit of quiet and relax to do it, but you also don't want to let them get stuck and not finish. It's a bummer. Like, you really want to avoid having a kid go out with an unfinished project. So that's another thing when you're walking around, to make sure that they don't start with tinnitus. You make just sure that they start. You may have to ask them questions. You may have to, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite animal? If they're looking for the perfect thing, just say, oh, you just need to choose something. So, okay. And also, you want to kind of hold the kids' horses. You want to tell them in advance, let's not jump ahead. We need to mute somebody. I heard a cute little voice. You want to tell them not to jump ahead, usually because they may miss an important step or do something that they kind of can't undo, that they regret. One way that I like to demonstrate, if we're doing a drawing or a painting project, is in a lot of classrooms, we'll have an Elmo, which is a projector that will project what you are doing on the actual paint, the paper that we're using. So I'll do it once there. And then if there's the whiteboard that the teacher uses, I'll do the same step on that whiteboard. By the time I've done it 2 times, the kids have usually done it once, and you can go on to the next step. If you take too long between your steps, you'll lose your classroom. They stop paying attention, then they start, being disruptive, and you're constantly quieting them down again and again and again. So you kind of got to pace yourself. There you go. Take too long, lose your audience. It's good to ask the teacher how they quiet their class, especially for the elementary school. Do they do a clapping, or do they do the peace sign? What did they use for that class? And then bring one of your own in case the teacher doesn't have one that you feel comfortable using, so that you can get their attention when you need to. Recruit some help. So by signing up to be a docent, you're the main squeeze, you're the big honcho, but it's really helpful usually to get some other parents to come and help you. So you will need to get to know the other parents, which is fun, and invite them to come in on the day of the lesson and help you with whatever. And there's always something, putting out the supplies, bringing kids, if they're using paint, maybe they need a little extra squirt in the middle of the lesson. It's really nice to have an extra set of hands. I like to train them how to be helpful. When I'm teaching a class, I get there early, and then I ask the helpers to maybe be there 15 minutes early. And that gives me a chance to tell them about the project and to say, hey, watch for tinnitus. Make sure the kids don't use too much paint at this step. Please don't touch the kids' artwork. Don't draw it for them. I had a dad one time, I forgot to do that. And I had a dad draw on a kid's art and draw right on their paper, some little thing. And then the mom sees it and is like, my kid didn't draw that. Nobody really wanted that dad's art on their refrigerator. So make sure you train your helpers. Remind them that they are there to help all the kids. You will find there will be parents who are really there to be there only for their child. And that's a big bummer. It's a bummer for the other kids at their table who are being ignored. And it's a triple bummer for their own kid. It really is. I'm going to let that sink for a minute. So you might even try to have them sit at the table that isn't their child's table. I had a mom that was, honestly, I think she's a little bit nutsy, but she sat next to her daughter, and that poor girl looked up at her mom every single step to make sure she was doing it right. Well, that's the beauty of art, is there's so many right ways to do it. And she wouldn't do anything without approval. And I even had that mom come running over to me. Oh, did they have to do this? Whatever. It was clouds. It just didn't matter. But she wanted to make sure her daughter was doing it perfectly. And that poor child didn't get to breathe. So I sent the mom to another table, and she tried to wander back. I was like, no, you really, you need to let your kid breathe. And so they are there to help everybody. Kids should do their own work always. Make sure parents don't help. And when possible, this is really nice. It's good manners for the kids, and it's so helpful for you. You can use the kids to help clean up at the end. We usually have pitchers in the classroom with water. They can collect brushes and things, but don't let them start too early. If you will inevitably have some kid who races through the project because they're just not that into it, or they're just speedy, and then they want to help clean up. And it's great as long as it's not too early, because I swear, just like Tom Sawyer, once you let a kid out of their seat to help, other kids will suddenly be finished because they're sure that cleaning up must be more fun, or might be more fun, or is, they don't want to miss out. So manage that. Don't let them get up too soon. If you have a kid who's done very early, you can try to help them think of ways they can embellish their art, maybe something they could add so they don't distract the rest. Okay, so on the day of the project, be on time. And that means like an hour early, if you can. You're going to find out from your school chair how early you can actually show up, but you will do a much better job if you arrive early, you've set up the room, you passed out the papers, you have out the brushes, and you can clear your head. If you race in and start out frazzled, your whole lesson's going to go down the tubes, I promise you. So I like to show up an hour early if I can. That gives me a chance to write on the board, to think, have some quiet, and then I have my helpers come 15 minutes early so that they're not there the whole time, so I can think. If I can, if the school chair hasn't done it already, I write notes on the whiteboard, like the artist's name, maybe where they're from, key art words like perspective or parallel. You'll actually notice a lot of art words are math words. Write them on the board because for lots of reasons. One, if you get a little tongue-tied, which sometimes you do, you start to be like, oh, it'll unstick you. It'll like kind of help you along. Also, we want the kids to see those words and know those words. So writing some notes on the board for yourself and for the kids is helpful. If you have electronics available, hopefully everybody does. By that, I mean like slide, like a projector to project. There will be usually a PowerPoint or something to kind of help you present. Make sure that it's all up and working during that hour before, because you and I both know if you come in with 5 minutes to spare, the thing is not going to turn on and you're going to not be able to use it. And the PowerPoints are super helpful. You don't have to show every slide, but it can also keep you from getting tongue-tied and make sure that you're, on track and saying what you need to say. Invoke the golden rule before you leave the room, the art room or the art cart. That is, leave it like you want to find it. So do not leave the room messy. Make sure it's super nice for the people after you. We want to keep our program growing. We don't want to make the teachers mad or, whatever. Just be nice. I think I might have it in a note elsewhere, but also we had a time years ago where we had brushes that were, we usually use nice things. And if you don't clean the brushes quickly enough, they'll dry up and you can ruin supplies. So you have your helpers, but I like it when the docents are in charge of the brushes because you know how valuable they are and you'll really take care of them. So don't delegate that. Supplies. You like my picture here? I picked things that have lots of supplies. The one on the right, this black and brown thing, we actually used coffee to paint the brown. It's charcoal and coffee. The one below it, it's like splattered white paint. And we use so many different supplies for this one: watercolor, oil pastel. This one here with the funky eyes and the condor. My daughter was a big fan of vultures, believe it or not. We used Tyvek paper, which was kind of a weird thing. That's that really durable envelope, things you might see an envelope being made out of. So we try to get fancy supplies and not just crayons and markers so that the kids will get something that they haven't tried before, hopefully. So tell your kids about the supplies. Hey, this is an oil pastel, not a crayon. And this is why, or, this is what we're using today. It's kind of a fun thing for them to start to learn about different supplies. Because we use special things, well, that's one of the reasons. We have a general rule of 1 per child. So we might have, say, watercolor paper. That's kind of an expensive supply. And we give out 1 per child. So if a kid starts their project and they're like, I don't like it, I want a new paper. The answer is 99% of the time, the answer is no. We will try to help them problem solve if they don't like what they like or what they did. You can often have them turn the paper over if they need to, but we don't want to set a precedent of, just handing them new papers. I have, in rare circumstances, given the kid another paper with an understanding that it's kind of breaking the rules and it's just between us. The other time you might, as if, another kid spills or they spill on their work or somebody scribbles on their neighbor's paper. That might be a time where you break out another sheet, but basically 1 per kid. Also, you deprive them of problem solving. If you just solve it by always giving them a new piece, you kind of neglect that idea. And what you can do, let's say they have a smudge, a line, something they don't like, you can help them problem solve and say, oh, could we turn that into a cloud or a flower or what could we do? Or you may have to just say, well, that's just going to look like that. And when we try it again, we're just trying this. It's, it's not about the outcome. It's about trying it. The balancing act of quantities. So how much do I give people of whatever it is? Let's say we're doing paint. Usually they don't need, people oversupply with paint. And if you have helpers, they can always give a little extra squirt. And we don't want to be wasteful, etc. But I have had a docent be so proud because somebody wanted more paint and she told him no. And that made me sad because I really, at the end of the day, I want kids to go home with something they're proud of. That's the vision they had in their mind, not, like, gosh, that would have been great if I just could have had a little more red. So keep that in mind. Be kind to the earth. I think there's a lot of chance to be super wasteful. We do not need a plastic table cover on the project every time. Lots of projects don't require it. In fact, depending on your table at Alta Vista, we almost never used it because it was easy to scrape off a little dried paint. You could use like an old credit card and scrape it off in a little squirt and it was off. And rather than bring in plastic sheet after plastic sheet and etc., this is your chance to be kind to Mother Earth. Okay, there it is. Take care of the brushes. This is a tip that probably your school chair will tell you, but also this is a good thing to teach the kids. So if you're working with paint, you take a paper towel if you want to switch colors or whatever, and you wipe off the bulk of the paint in the direction of the bristles. And then you put it in your water and rinse it off, and then you wipe it again. That keeps your water from getting disgusting in a big hurry. And it does a much better job of getting your brushes clean. And then also what I've already said, make sure, let's say you do a step in the beginning, like the one we did the other day, we painted the whole paper red. And then we were done with that brush. We were putting it away. Have your helpers pick it up once kids are done with it. It doesn't need to sit on the desk for the whole class and dry out and become trash. So take care of your brushes. Every school will be a little different. Ask your school chair. Tears and fears. So I picked this picture here of the zebra on purpose because that was a project that seemed to frazzle a lot of kids. And it was pretty picky and pretty difficult. It was a difficult project. And I think one of the best things that you can do whenever you anticipate that a project is like this is before they even set their pencil to the paper, is you explain to them that we're trying this new thing, that anytime you try something new, you're learning. It's not, don't expect it to be perfect the first time. We're just trying this. So if you can head it off, if you give that little, we're just practicing lecture before you start. Sometimes you get what your energy conveys. So I have seen people go in to teach and they are there to conquer those kids. They are there to make sure they're in control of the class and the kids do this and they do it when they're told. And gosh, that's a bummer. I think you just don't need to be that way. You get to be that special person that comes in and you bring a calmness to the class and the kids will feel more calm. So just try to, and here, give your time wholeheartedly. I'm going to repeat that bit. Don't be looking at your watch for, oh, maybe I can cut off the last step so I can get to that meeting at work. If you are volunteering to do this, do it wholeheartedly. Don't have one foot out the door. Really give the kids your time and attention, and give them your energy. Be present. Say yes to copying. Now, this you might really want to spell out to the kids. Kids are constantly told, don't copy, that's cheating, etc. And in art, that's how we learn. That's how you can tell them, that's how master artists learn, is they copy each other. And you will notice our projects, we always start with something like here, the zebra or the cat, and we're having the kids create that. And you will notice at the end of the day, they are not all going to be the same. So we learn by copying. Don't worry about that. That is how we learn. And they're still making 100 decisions of, gee, this person, they have their flower with their zebra, their little tree. They decide how they want to draw the eyes or whatever. They will make lots of decisions and it's okay to copy. Okay, erasing. There have been presenters that said, no, we don't even give them erasers. There's no erasing. There's no mistakes in art, so there's no erasing. I can't do that. I disagree with that. So you'll have your own philosophy. I believe in erasing. There is nothing that makes me more aggravated than not being able to get rid of something that makes me mad. But you must know there will be the child that is a perfectionist, and they will erase and they will draw and they will erase and they will draw. And before you know it, there's a hole in the paper. They haven't gone on to the next step. They have not achieved perfection, and it can be a bummer. So you know, you just have to pay attention to it. If a kid erases, if they get addicted to their eraser, you might have to take it and say, you know, we're just going to move on to the next step. Okay. Are there mistakes in art? I bet you've all heard people say there are no mistakes in art. And that's another one that people have different philosophies. I don't really like that. I rather like it to say instead, it's okay to make mistakes in art. You know, if a child draws something vastly different than what they want, and you just tell them, oh, it's not a mistake, you aren't helping them problem solve. And you aren't teaching them something maybe that they can use. So instead say, it's okay to make mistakes. We're trying it out. And I have this particular example here. Notice these two busts. Now, if I'm teaching art and I'm trying to be realistic, I'm going to teach the kid that our eyes are really halfway on our face. We always think of them, or often you'll look at kids' drawings, their eyes are right up where their forehead should be. And so you would teach them that their eyes belong in the center of their face. Let's pretend. So, but look at this one on the right. This is by an artist, Modigliani is the inspiration. And he did these strange elongated faces and funny little necks that were very curvy. And look how high the eyes are. Now, is that a mistake that the eyes are high? No, that's stylized. You know, that's not a mistake. So there are no mistakes in art in that regard. You know, that's a style. But if a kid really wants to, if you just tell them there's no mistake and don't help them fix what's bothering them, that's not cool. Okay, so listen, appreciate, summarize, ask questions. So if they have something that's bothering them, sometimes all they really want is a sympathetic ear. They just want to tell you about it. And if you listen and you say, okay, so I'm hearing you say that, you know, you don't like the shape of your nose. And then you can offer, well, what if you added a nostril on this side and made it more symmetrical, or, you know, help them to problem solve instead of just declaring it not a mistake. Oh, I love to do this. Okay, so kids are hung up on what's right, what's the right way to do something. And I love when you do your art at your workshop, you're going to bring that sample to your art room or to your class. And usually, like at Alta Vista, we would have a bulletin board with lots of docent samples. And so I like to grab a couple of them that are pretty different. And I ask, and I very genuinely ask, okay, kids, these are docents, these are parents that made these pieces of art. Which one did it right? And it was so funny. One time I had this little girl, oh, I know that one. And it was so funny. Her mom had actually done the one that she thought was right. But of course, the right answer is that they both did it right. They're very different, but they both did it right. So you give the kids permission to have art that doesn't look like everybody else's art, and that's doing it right. Growth mindset, I already talked about that, but remind the kids of that too, that we're learning and we're getting better. We're not perfect yet. We don't succeed every time. Sometimes you just say, well, sometimes we, you know, we're done and we got to try it. We got to learn about watercolors or oil pastels, but we don't really love it. That's okay. We don't have to love everything that we do. Art has rules and they were made to be broken. That's kind of like the eye thing I showed you. There's the rule if you're doing it realistically, but hey, Modigliani wasn't wrong for putting his elongated faces. So it's good to know the rules. It's like English. I'm sure you've had an English teacher say that too, that our language has rules, but they're made to be broken. So, but make sure you do teach them the norms, what the rules are. Stretch their brains. Hey, this is the Sequoia one. On the bottom, I told you how I brought in the tape measure. This one and the one above it, these were teaching about perspective. So make sure you use those art words and make sure we talk about art education. We don't want to just do the project and not have a lesson. we're not going to be, I mean, we're invited into the school because we make it rich and we teach the kids a lesson and we use art words. And if you think my kindergartner won't understand the word perspective, well, then explain it. And you know, I like for this one, the fields of lavender, the top, I would stand up at the front and I would say, hold up a pencil with some writing on it. And I'd say, oh, who can read what my pencil says? And pretty much nobody could, but they could see there were words. And then I would back up a little and I would say, what if I backed up? Could you still see my pencil? What if there wasn't a wall and I was on the street, you know, a street away? What would you be able to see? And you talk, and at some point, you wouldn't be able to see me at all. That's called a vanishing point. So you go through and make sure that they learn a concept and you use the vocabulary, and hopefully you have it written on the board too. Don't skip the art history, just customize it, make it appropriate for the age of kids that you're teaching to. If you're teaching middle school, which most new docents aren't teaching middle school, they've done it before, but that's where the classes can be very short. You might have to teach history while they're painting between steps, but don't skip it. I like to use the words like that you're tricking their eye, you're making some magic on that page. You know, here this page is just a flat piece of paper, but you make it look like it goes off into the distance and it can hold a house and mountains. Tie things together, make connections. So the reason I put these two pictures for samples here, they were 2 different years, but they both taught a similar concept of perspective. And so you can say, hey, remember when we did fields of lavender and we talked about vanishing point? Well, here we are, we're talking about vanishing point again with these sequoias. So tie it to things in their school, their life. And let's see. If you hold all your comments, you may miss your chance for a light bulb moment. So if you do see a kid doing something, you know, making all the stripes parallel instead of going towards a vanishing point, and you say nothing, the kid's going to miss the lesson. So you might gently, you know, suggest that they want them to go into a vanishing point. If they don't want to change it, that's okay. You let it go. Do we have any questions up to now, Jessica, that we ought to address?
No, this is a very quiet group.
I love it. Except it's weird. I feel like I'm talking to myself. I wanted to go back. What? We have a question?
Yes, we do have one question. Is the class teacher involved at all? Or do they not necessarily stay in the classroom? That is a good question.
Oh, the teachers?
The teacher has to stay in the classroom.
The teacher must stay in the classroom, and you should encourage the teacher to do the project with you. That is the best thing, is when the teachers will do the project with the kids. I love that, and it gets the kids more engaged. You should definitely encourage that. I want to show you one more. Let's see, when I was at this one, I didn't talk about this particular picture when I saw it. This was a project that we did that was, you can see the drawing is very simple. You're making a glass, you're drawing some goldfish and a lemon. And the docent in my son's class thought it was, and he was in middle school, thought it was too hard to get it done on time. So she had them trace because she wanted it to look perfect. And he came home. This is my kid who doesn't even really love art. He was mad, like he was angry. And he's like, Mom, he said, a monkey could have done that. Because the teacher didn't let them do their own thing. He didn't get a chance. So it's better for it not to look perfect than to, you know, make it so that the kids can't even feel like they made decisions. Okay, let me get back to where I was. One more. Oh, I'm getting to the end here. So ages and stages. It is very different, you know, when you're teaching a kindergartner or a middle schooler or something. So make sure that you gear your lesson to your audience. You might, instead of saying, oh, make your face about 5 inches tall, You might say, make it as big around as your hand when you spread out your fingers, or make something as long as your finger. And, you can also say inches. You want them to, put it together, but give an example that they can actually really relate to. When you have younger kids, you're going to give little, like short, like we're going to draw a circle and then you're going to make sure everybody does it. When kids start getting older, you can give them maybe 2 or 3 steps at once. And there's an advantage in that it's nice to be able to let the kids kind of really get into their work and not have you interrupt all the time. So you'll start to get good at gauging that, like how much they can handle before they forget. So that's a way to make things easier for littler kids, is just to break it down into smaller steps. But show them where you're going. If you're drawing Mickey Mouse, don't just say, let's draw a circle. Show them, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do Mickey here, but let's start with a circle. By the way, we're not drawing Mickey Mouse. Usually, that's not going to be a project we have. So ask questions to determine understanding. Make sure you give the kids a chance to, raise their hand and answer some questions and get involved. And also, we usually, depending on the project, we will have a simpler way to approach it sometimes for younger kids. We might, leave out a step or simplify, but you don't need to do much of it for them. So this is to prep or not to prep. And by prep, I mean to do a step for the kid in advance. And I am of the opinion it's rarely a good idea to prep. There's very few things that we benefit by prepping. Every once in a while, I'll be like, yep, that really set them off on the right path. But most kids can do most things if given a chance. So if it's to draw that very first circle for city perspectives, maybe you don't let them do it. It's not about refrigerator art. It's about the experience. If they're we're going to do a project this year where they start with a circle and they make a city that is, looks like a perspective. Teach them how to put the plate, if they're going to trace a plate, and spread out their fingers and push down and trace around it, rather than doing it for them. Then if you get a kid who's going to cry, I think you could help, but give them a chance. They can do more than you can imagine. In fact, I want to go back. I'm being bad, but that picture of the cat, where was the cat? I even had a kindergarten teacher say, oh, I didn't think there was a chance the kids could do this. Where's my cat? This one on the bottom. See this little cat? That was drawn by a kindergartner. And look what a great job they did. So and the kindergarten teacher said, wow, I didn't think they could do that, but really they can, given the chance. So do that. Let's see. Use art vocabulary anyway, even if you don't think they understand it, just explain it. There we go. I think I've handled that. Okay, so let me just go back to this real quick. This is again our theme. Every year we'd have a different theme. See, now look at Jessica and I. Do you see how we match? And this was our theme from another year. This was your passport to anywhere. Art is your passport to anywhere. So this year it's art creates new perspectives. And just since I have a captive audience, this is totally not mandatory. If you want a t-shirt, they are available on South Bay Hands-on Art. It's kind of fun to go into your lesson, wearing the year's shirt, and we also have aprons. So just wanted to make you aware that if you want to have a shirt, I'm going to tell you, I could probably dress myself for a couple of weeks in all the shirts that I have from previous years, because that's just fills up my drawer and they make me happy. So that is that. Oh, and now I'm going to say, go be that art lady or that art guy. Let me explain that. when you are out in the world, it is so much fun when you see a kid that was in one of your classes and they're at the grocery store and they're tugging at their mom's shirt and they're pointing at you going, Mom, that's that art lady. That's the art lady, or that's the art guy. So it's fun to be that person that they recognize, that brought them something fun. These are some kids. I love, love, love this picture here. This kid on the bottom. He loved this project so much. They had a cutout, a silhouette of a human, and then they had magazines and actual fabric and fringe and things. He had so much fun that if you turn this over, there's another person on the other side. He couldn't stop. He just loved making it. The kids have so much fun. So you are bringing something very special, and I think you're going to love it. And that is what I have. Who has questions? I see a
I
hand
see
up.
one hand. Marty, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, just a quick question. You mentioned about, having helpers, and I know that last year at our school, Washington, we were, I think, restricted to just one extra person. And I've been doing this. My son, who's now a fourth grader, I've been helping him since he was in TK. And in the past, we usually had like 4, sometimes even 5 helpers. So for this year, is there a limit, or are we allowed to have more helpers?
I think that is going to be one of those picky things that each school might even be different. So, I mean, it really is nice to have helpers, but since you bring that up, I want to also tell you sometimes too many helpers is a bad thing. You can get parents that come there because they just want their social time, and they'll talk as much as the kids in the back of the class. So if you do get a lot of helpers, that could be a training thing, just like don't touch their art, to say, please, just work with the kids and don't have it be social time.
I agree. I think the 3 is almost the perfect number with, well, not 3 total. One
3
being the
total,
docent,
yeah,
and then
3 total.
2 parents, one on each
And
side
train
of the room.
them so that they're helpful. Say, keep them busy. Like, here, can you take this picture and collect the brushes? Can you, whatever.
Marty,
so that they're useful. Yeah.
Marty, go ahead and ask your school chair, Laura,
Okay.
and I can't remember the other one's name. They'll know for sure. And then just on the subject of helpers, as the docent, you can tell the teacher that you only like to have 2 or 3 helpers, right? You don't have to open it up to, every parent who wants to come.
Okay, thank you.
All
I
right.
see one more hand. Susie?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there. Can you see me?
Yeah.
I'm in my child's room. I'm taking out the trash. Love Zoom. All right.
Awesome.
So my question is I have a child at Adams and I have a child at the SDC class in Lincoln. And is this meeting, because I'm getting emails from both schools, and I'm still trying to decide, frankly, if I'm going to be the docent or just a helper. And
Okay.
so would this meeting kind of suffice for both?
Yes.
Yes.
This
yes.
is for everybody across the district.
But each of those schools, if you decide to be a docent, you are going to have to probably go to some other training from those school chairs to tell you, hey, here's our art room. Here's where we keep this. This is what, there'll be
Right.
some other information you'll have to get.
Right. I'm still treading water, trying to figure out how the school year is panning out.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
It is a big commitment, but I'll tell you, if you can commit to it, it's so much fun and you'll get a lot out of it.
I know I had fun in third. I did third
Yeah.
and kinder before.
But it's not a show up and have someone tell me what to do project. It's really, you have to be your own pushing person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I saw one other hand, but I think it went down. Does anybody else? Go ahead and Nazila. Did I say that right? I'm sorry.
Yes, Nazila.
Nazila.
Okay, my question is about the painting. So basically when the kids start their drawing, they're gonna start with pencil, and after they finish with drawing the whole shape with the pencil, then they start coloring with watercolor. Is that right?
It's, you know what, we're going to have 6 different projects this year.
Uh-huh.
And you will need to go to a training for any of them that you're going to teach. And the person is going to tell you what to do there. So some projects start with a pencil. Sometimes we skip it. Sometimes we'll use watercolor, sometimes we'll use acrylic. We have 6 projects, so they'll all have different things, and you'll get a chance to try it before you
Oh,
teach.
okay. Because you mentioned that if they make mistake, they can erase it. So that's why I was confused. That
Usually it's often that you will start with a pencil, but not always.
okay. Thank you.
Gabriella?
Yeah, let's see. Sorry. So I might have kind of questions that might be answered by our school chair, but maybe I'll ask here as well. So for example, we're in Washington, there's 3 docents in Mrs. Laster's class. So if there's 6 lessons, it would kind of make sense that maybe each docent is going to handle 2 lessons, right? And then
Right.
And then as far as the helpers, like, is there a helper list, or would one of the other docents be a helper, or it's just us recruiting someone from the class?
Often at back to school night, teachers will get a list of people who, like, they'll hand out, hey, do you want to help in garden? You want to whatever, and people will check the box.
Yeah.
And you can get that list from your teacher often.
Okay.
The other little thing, for what it's worth, when you have more than one docent in a class, sometimes people will split it and say, you do the history, I'll do the lesson.
Okay.
There's other ways to do it, but it is kind of nice to just have it all be you for a lesson, if you ask me.
And then as far as, so only if you're the docent for that particular lesson, just the one docent would go to the training.
Correct.
So again,
Correct.
you would do 2 trainings.
We don't have room for all the docents to show up if they're not teaching, and like we really can only accept one per,
Okay. And then I don't know if you know this, but like, for example, how many docents does a class usually have? Like, is 3 the number of docents? Or
usually 2 is the max.
okay.
You can put it to the teacher to say, hey, can you pick, the docents? I guess you could get away with 3, but 2
That's
kind of the best.
very site specific.
Okay.
I let it happen too, but we have absolutely shared with 3 or 4 people before.
Okay. No, and I mean, the reason that I ask is because, I think all of us, like volunteering, you want to make sure that you can devote the time to it. There's a chance that we might be moving. So I don't want to.
You don't want to be the only docent then.
Yeah, I don't want to leave the school stranded, but I also don't want to like back out now in case the move doesn't happen. So like, I want to make sure that.
Well, you could always be a helper too. Like you can, if you have 3 docents, the 2 that aren't teaching can help, and that way they still get to be in the classroom.
Okay. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
No problem.
Gabrielle?
Yes.
Hi, this is Jewel for Mrs. Lasters. I was going to say as well, I also don't mind being a helper if it doesn't pan out. I don't mind being a helper as well, but I also don't mind teaching either. So if you could just, we could play by ear. You can let me know. We could talk to Mrs. Laster.
Let's definitely connect and kind of figure out who's going to lead when and who's going to help when.
Awesome. Okay, I'll get in touch with you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I chime in real quick? For Gabrielle as well. This is Marty, and I'm also, my kid's at Washington. I've got a 2nd and a 4th grader. Yeah. And I know last year we did the same. I was a docent for both classes, and we had 2 of us in one class and 3 in the other. And that's exactly what we did. We took the 6 lessons and we split them equally. And we each were the lead docent and taught the class for whatever number we had. 2, if there was 2 of us, it was 3 or 2. And then the other docent was the helper.
Okay.
And we've just planned it out this year. And I'm hoping that this year, one of my classes, there's 3 of us. And so I'm hoping that whoever takes the lead, that the other 2 can both be helpers. I'm actually emailing right now to the school chair.
Yes, you guys can figure out that in your school.
Thank you.
Anna, go ahead and unmute.
Hi. I missed the first part of the presentation. I was wondering if you went over the art that we will be doing.
We did not.
Okay.
You'll have that information probably brought to you by the school chairs. We are going to try and do a docent handbook that has that information. They're also all on our website, southbayhandsonart.com. So you can just go and check out all the projects as well.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, it's just after 10. So if you're not interested in hanging out and listening to questions, you're more than welcome to go ahead and drop off. And I do not think we have any new questions. Let me, oh, okay, here's another question in the chat. How often are mandatory trainings on a Thursday versus a Friday? So right now, all of our trainings are on Fridays. That may change. We're kind of using City Perspective next Friday as, you know, dipping our toe back into doing it the old fashioned way, right? When we used to do it on Thursdays and Fridays. So we're hoping after next Friday, we may have an opportunity to offer two again, but that hasn't been determined yet. You know, there are some restrictions that Redondo Beach Unified has on us right now due to COVID and security stuff like that. So we're hoping next Friday we can, you know, demonstrate that everything is working well and back to normal. So stand by on that. There are also plenty of ways that you can get training if you can't make it to the Friday meeting. Also, some of the schools are doing trainings on their sites themselves. So if you're at Jefferson, Lincoln, or, and I'm totally blanking on the other schools, St. James and one of the others, maybe Bernie, that you'll be able to have training. Toledo, thank you, Kyla. I saw that. Thank you, Toledo. I knew it was another school. You'll have opportunities to train outside of Friday. The first training is next Friday. It's City Perspective. You should be getting information from your school chairs on all of that. And yes, it is super fun. You can go ahead and unmute if you have any other questions, but go ahead and drop into chat if you want.
If you're a Jefferson docent, you are not going to that Friday one. You're going to one the following week. Just wanted to give that to every Jefferson docent.
Thanks, Sam. You are welcome. So I'm going to go ahead and just not formally adjourn this meeting, but formally adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much, Sandy, for running through everything. She's done this for Torrance and for us for so long. She's got the ins and outs of teaching. Direct most of your questions to your school chairs. If you need us, we're around, of course. But your school chairs will be able to run most of the interference for you because they know your unit and your principal and your teachers way better than Sandy, Michelle, and I do. All right, thank you, everybody. If you do have another question, please go ahead and hang on with us for a couple of minutes. Sandy, you want to go ahead and stop sharing, and
I'll do that.
All our chairs can hang out for a minute.
Yes, thank you for coming, everyone. You will encounter things I didn't talk about because it's always an adventure, but hopefully it helps some.
I'm going to stop our recording now because we do not need to record share conversation. Stop recording.